All right, welcome back to the Boston Boys Sports Podcast. I again am one half of the Boston Boys Sports. I'm Eli Horrigan, and I'm here again today with my good friend Steve Fernandez. Steve, how you doing today?
Doing all right. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good myself, ready to talk some sports with you. We got a lot to go over today. We always want to mention that we are partnered with Jones and for Sports. Check them out on Twitter, check them out on Instagram, also on YouTube. Jones and for Sports. We make sports better. Today is Monday, April 22nd, and we have a great show for you today, including our Monday overreaction now, our 5-5 NFL draft overrated, underrated edition. Playoff talk. We got Bruins and Celtics going on, and we will answer questions from you, the fans. And I will also be asking Steve some questions at the end of this show for some of his predictions. And Steve, why don't we go ahead jump in with the Monday overreaction? You want to go first?
Yeah, let's do that. I had a few different ideas on this one. I kept going back and forth, and then yesterday kind of changed my mind for this. So during the Miami Celtics game, I having a little interaction on Twitter, and I have to say my overreaction to my Twitter experience yesterday is that the Miami Heat fans might be the worst fans in sports, and the absolute most ridiculous.
I saw a lot of them. Actually, not only did I see a lot of them, I saw that there was a lot of people who were looking at these. You want to give us some examples of what happened?
Yeah, just trying to have a basic conversation about the series, how it's going to go, the fact that Jimmy Butler's not playing. And I don't know why, but a lot of Miami fans, they start talking about how LeBron James played and how what he did to the Celtics. So it
Okay.
forced me, of course, to defend that and to remind them that LeBron had to go there. His words, because he had to, try to compete with P.S. and Allen and Garnett. And then it got to me just joking around with them about the fact that their arena is always empty at the start of the game and they show up in the second or third quarter. That was
Perfect.
oh my, like I couldn't keep up with the notifications on Twitter. You don't understand. There's traffic. Well, I lived on Cape Cod. I lived in Boston. We had traffic. I just left early. I didn't know we were the only smart ones who knew to leave early if you knew there was traffic to get somewhere.
Now,
So I asked, go ahead.
I was gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong. LeBron plays for Miami right now, or
I'm pretty sure he played for a couple teams since he played for Miami, and that was a while ago. But apparently, when you have a guy named Playoff Jimmy and he's never won a title, you kind of have
true.
to go back to the last time you actually won a title. So that was their thing.
Hey, you
Yeah,
put up a
it
tweet.
got crazy.
Sorry, you put up a tweet too. Playoff Jimmy as the Miami Heat faithful. Well, I guess not faithful. Miami Heat kind of fans. His numbers are worse than Jason Tatum's, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, their playoff games played isn't that different. I think Jimmy Butler's like 20 or 25 more. Um, yeah, every single stat. I mean, you're talking points, rebounds, assists. Jason
Yeah.
Tatum covers Jimmy Butler. So I mean, it's weird to me to have that. Like I said, I mean, I said it on Twitter. Mr. October is Mr. October because he performed in October, but also
Yeah.
because he has 5 titles. How can your nickname be Playoff Jimmy and you've never won a title? It just doesn't
Yeah.
make
I
sense
mean,
to me.
and not only that, like, and he's dragged that Heat team to the finals, but I mean, they've been
Yeah,
pretty outperformed in the finals too. So I mean, you got Big Shot Chauncey, which is stolen from Big Shot Rob. These are guys who hit massive shots in playoff games and have won titles. I don't think you could be dubbed anything Big Shot playoff this if you don't have the rings to go with it. So I completely agree with you. I saw a lot of those things, and I myself got a little involved with it and wrote, maybe if Miami after a loss, they want to talk about how good LeBron was because that's all they have. So maybe if they Heat win, we'll start talking Bill Russell 11 championships, 8 in a row, so we can fit in with them. But we're actual sports fans, so um, let's jump in my
yes.
overreaction. And I've been avoiding this one. You were an athlete. I was an athlete myself way back in the day. And I don't want to jinx this, and we know how superstitious athletes can be, but Cutter Crawford has benefited from Andrew Bailey, the new pitching coach. It's an extremely small sample size, and I understand that. But if you go to since Bailey's been in Boston as a pitching coach, since before. From 2021 to 2023, Cutter Crawford was 9-15, 4.75 ERA, 214 strikeouts, 67 walks, and he had a 1.25 whip. In 2024, he's 1-0, not because of him, because of the team, obviously, but he's 1-0 with a 0.66 ERA, 30 Ks, 11 walks, and a 0.99 whip. I have been continuing to say, like, I don't believe in Cutter Crawford. It's a small sample size. We're still in April, but I'm really impressed with his play.
Yeah, I like that one. I know obviously it's a small sample size, but going to what Andrew Bailey said in the preseason in spring training
Yeah.
about how he had basic statistics he had broken down that he wanted his pitchers to go for, and it was 5 innings pitched or more. It was the first pitch strikes, and Crawford's kind of fit into everything that Bailey said he was going to go out to do. So I take a little bit of positive from that because it's actually something that was stated they were going to shoot for, and he's reaching those goals at this point.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of amps it up a little bit as well. Yes.
And I hate the analytics part of baseball now because I wrote about this and I've probably talked about it a number of times too. It's like, I'm so sick of seeing pitchers go 5 innings. Like, you're never going to see Nolan Ryan anymore, a guy who's in his 40s pitching complete games, like Pedro, Greg Maddux, these greats that we watch as kids. It's like the other day, Tanner Houck threw a 9 inning shutout and I was like floored. I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. So normally we like to jump right into our 5-5, but because this was my overreaction, they were 4-3 last week. And I've been saying just win weeks. And that's what they've been doing. They've been eking out weeks. So 4-3 last week. They're 13-10 overall, which is third place in the AL East. They have the best ERA in baseball. They have the second most saves. Tristan Casas is finding his power. It looks like he had 3 home runs last week. My guy, which I said before the season, Wilyer Abreu, I thought was going to have a really good campaign. His batting average jumped from 111 to 280 this week. He had another 3 hits yesterday. They swept the Pirates. Jarren Duran, Connor Wong, they're seeing the ball well. I know you don't believe like I believe, but at least give me this little bit. It's a good start. It's not strong, but it's better than you might have expected.
Yeah, if you were to tell me 13-10 after 23 games, I would say I'll take a 100%. Especially if you were to tell me the injuries that they were going to have to go through and still be at 13-10. One of the positives that you get from this is you get to see the young guys. I mean, we complained that they didn't spend money. The other day they had an $8.8 million roster.
Yeah.
But you're having the ability to see the young guys actually play, and they're performing, that'll get fans to watch. The fan that said, forget this team, they're not putting money into it, I'm not putting my attention into it.
Yeah.
This will get people to watch as the young guys' performance. So yeah, I'm not gonna say 90 wins, but at least it's an enjoyable product because you get to see the young guys get out there.
Well, when they do hit 90 wins, I will gladly welcome you onto my bandwagon because I don't think there's a person on the planet besides me who said 90. I haven't heard that from anyone else. I was, like I said, I was on a baseball kick that night and I just couldn't believe it. And yeah, I think you're right. We're getting to see these young guys. The Red Sox, I wrote in my blog last night. It's like as soon as I'm ready to throw in the white flag and be like, I don't know. It's like then Tanner Houck goes to pitches a complete game shutout. And it's like, all right, I'm back. We're back to 90. Yep. So I think that's going to be my final thought on the Red Sox. I think just we have too much to get through with our 5-5, and then the playoffs are here. We have all summer to really talk about the Red Sox, but I do want to say that they're 13-10. And one other thing I will say, my wife and I, we went down to the Fenway area last weekend, and I know they're not investing in the team, but the area down there is really fun. They have a lot going on. So, I mean, if they could field a team, and maybe these young guys are like, what a great experience it is down in the Fenway area. So that's all I'll say with that, because I do want to jump into our 5-5 because this is it's not only one of my favorites to do because we do the research. A lot of people, that's where I get a lot of responses from people that I see day to day. They love the 5-5. So this is our 5-5 NFL Draft Edition because this Thursday, the NFL draft is upon us. So we wanted to go deep dive into old NFL drafts and just go through some underrated and overrated. And this isn't talking about guys who are busts, or this is simply what they were predicted as, where they went, and that's how we went through it. So 5 and 5, underrated first, as always. Steve, who's your first underrated?
I'm gonna go with an easy one, and it's Drew Brees.
Okay, yeah.
Um, he was basically a first round pick. I think he was drafted in the second round, but it was 32 overall because somebody lost their first round of that year. But everything, the draft profile, the scouting reports are exactly what you would think. Too short, sidearms too much, can't see over the offensive line. And obviously the guy comes into the league, has the injury, gets through that. He throws for 80,000 yards. We all know the numbers, 571 touchdowns. Just an absolute freak. People knock him for only one Super Bowl, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it was a tough NFL. There was a lot of guys in the league at that time winning Super Bowls,
I,
especially one around here. So
and just to keep going with Drew Brees, right? He was looked until he got to the Saints, right? You're 100% right. He was completely underrated. He came out of Purdue, right?
yeah,
So he's a
Boilermaker.
Boilermaker. Yeah, he's a Boilermaker. And he comes out, no one wants him. He goes last in the first round, right? And then they say, we're going to take Philip Rivers. We don't want you here. And then the Miami Dolphins have the chance to sign him, and they signed Dante Culpepper, who was completely, like, when you talk about product of the system, he had Randy Moss, which completely inflated his numbers. And then Drew Brees kind of like the Saints are like, I guess we'll take you. And they go on to have, they were the eights when we were kids, and then they go on to be really, really good for years. Could you imagine if the Dolphins got Brees and we had Brees and Brady in the AFC East for like 15 years, how good that would have been?
That would have been unbelievable. And I'm sure people are going to argue, Drew Brees he was kind of a product of the turf, the dome, the perfect situation. So that might be the attack, but I think he would have been fine in Miami. I think that
Yeah,
would have
I
been a
think he,
lot of fun to watch.
I mean, talk about good weather all the time too, until you have to travel to New England and New York in December, if you're going to Buffalo or wherever. But I don't think it really would have mattered. I mean, Drew Brees was Drew Brees. He was just a great quarterback, and he was overlooked. And this is some things that are wrong with the NFL draft, right? That, it's not a perfect system. This is why we get to do this segment. My first underrated was DK Metcalf. DK
Mhm.
Metcalf, he didn't have the best numbers at Ole Miss. He was hurt a lot, but in 2019, he's completely overlooked. I remember at one point, because we were working together at the time, and it was
Yeah.
like he went from being like a potential first overall pick, like he could have been top 10, to maybe the late end of the first to a second. He just kept dropping. He ends up going in round 2, number 64 overall. He's listed at 6'3", 228, and runs a 4.340 at the combine. And nobody wanted to touch him because his big knock was that he was a bad route runner. And they like
Yep.
that was why he dropped so far. And you saw so many, and N'Keal Harry, we talk about him every time because that's my biggest miss ever. But N'Keal Harry goes before him, who couldn't get separation in the Pac-12 against really bad cornerbacks. But DK Metcalf, it runs a 4.3 40, 6'3", 228, and they're like, we can't touch him. He's a bad route runner. That's insane to me that this is how we judge talent.
Yeah, some of the measurables that they use and actually put a lot of weight into, they're absolutely ridiculous. And I remember DK Metcalf because the name that we kept hearing at that time was David Boston.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
size is going to ruin him. He works out too much. That's going to ruin his speed. It's going to ruin his this, that, his abilities. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Because I love DK Metcalf at that time. I
Yeah.
think he would have been a great addition. We talked about that, but yeah, that one was crazy too.
Absolutely. All right. Who do you got for number 2?
I'm going to stick with the receiver and go Antonio Brown.
As crazy as he is, he was that much better on the field. But go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking sixth round, 195th player taken that year. And it was all size, strength. There was one that he needs to work on his route running, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
If you ever watched Antonio Brown and understand, he was the best route runner in the NFL, in my opinion, for his normal period of time, if you will.
Yeah.
he was on
before.
pace to touch Jerry Rice's records, which I don't believe he would have done conditioning and everything else. Jerry Rice, he did it so long it was different, but he was on pace to touch the receptions in the yardage as well at one point in his career. Um, yeah, just 195th overall, and I mean he was
There,
just something special to watch.
yeah, there was a point in time where it was like he was like they would talk about it on Sports Center, they would talk about it on Sports Talk Show, they would talk about it everywhere. He was putting up Madden numbers. Like it
Yeah,
was almost like not real. You ever play Madden and you get to a point where you're too good at Madden and you're like, okay, this isn't even fun anymore because I'm winning. I'm on all Madden and I'm beating the computer 70 to 3. It's like, okay, I'm not having fun. That was like his like window. It's before Vontez Burfict scrambled his brain.
yeah.
Antonio Brown was putting up Madden like numbers, and it was like every week. I mean, if you had him, if you played fantasy football and you had him, it was like this guy's just scoring a ton for you. So I completely agree. I'm gonna go number 2 for me is quarterback Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure I have vivid memory of the Aaron Rodgers draft, him sitting in the green room, just like one team after the next passing on him. In 2005, for some of you young pups who are watching this show and you don't remember this, it was really like sad. Like, it was who's going one, Alex Smith or Aaron Rodgers, and San Francisco chooses Alex Smith, and then Rodgers just sits. And some of the things they said his hand size was too small. Um, an NFC scout was quoted as saying, he has a good chance to be a bust. And then an AFC scout called him a clone of Kyle Bowler and Joey Harrington. So
Wow.
he drops to 24th overall. He's still a first round pick, but I mean, could you imagine being the other 23 teams who passed on this guy who is he doesn't have the titles, which is why we don't talk about him as greatest of all time. But from an athletic standpoint, he's probably one of the top 5 greatest quarterbacks I ever watched play. And, they thought he was Joey Harrington, which I remember him as well.
Yep. Yep. I remember Joe Harrington. I 100%. I remember watching that, and it's funny because one of the shows yesterday did a look back at that, and they showed Aaron Rodgers spiked hair and his little Flavor Saver there in
Yeah.
2005,
Oh,
sitting
yeah.
and the camera right on his face the whole time.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, the guy I was doing his stats for something the other day, and the guy's thrown, I think it's 475 touchdowns and 105 interceptions, just
Which is
105.
That's crazy. That's like those are like
Yeah.
talk about not making mistakes. Like Chad Pennington was a guy who didn't make mistakes, but didn't have the arm talent to be like Aaron Rodgers didn't make mistakes, and he's elite as well as a thrower. He's Pat
100%.
Mahomes before Pat Mahomes. I mean, Pat Mahomes has more titles already, and Pat Mahomes is on the trajectory to be the greatest quarterback. If it stays like this, he's got to play for a lot longer. But that's who Aaron Rodgers was before Pat Mahomes was in the league.
Well, not to I'm just going to say this before I jump into my next one, but let's be honest. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is drafted into a system with Andy Reid like Pat Mahomes was,
Yeah,
he might have more titles. It might be a little bit different.
yeah, you might be right. All right, what do you got? Number 3.
I'm going to go Richard Sherman.
Okay, yeah,
He
that's
was
a good
taken in
one.
the 5th round, out of Stanford, number 154 overall. The scouts just said about him that he has too much hip stiffness. The guy he can be baited out of position in zone. Just
This is
crazy things. He's
stupidest
not
things.
explosive. Exactly. And these were the knocks on him. I mean, and we all know who he ended up being. Another one that might have been a little crazy at the but
Yeah,
the best cover, I mean, it was him and Revis. He was nasty. He was nasty. I mean, he was a great cover call.
I mean, if you take out the early Baltimore Ravens in 2000, that defense, like the Legion of Boom was one of the best defenses I ever watched play. They were so fun. Earl Thomas was nasty. I mean, they were so good, like top to bottom. Like it's exactly why Russell Wilson got paid in Denver. Like Denver can thank Richard. Actually, they probably not thanking him because they're not happy about it. But Denver is Richard Sherman's to blame for Russell Wilson getting paid in Denver. So I completely agree with you. My number 3 then, I don't want to cut you off. Do you have any more with Richard that you wanted to go over?
No,
All right. So
no, go right ahead.
my number 3 ended up being Des Bryant. And again, got another guy who goes 20 in 2010. actually same exact pick as Aaron Rodgers. He goes round one, 24 overall. But the scouts who looked at him, they said cornerbacks will stick with him due to his below average speed. He's slow off the snap. He doesn't run a full route tree. In his sophomore season, he had 87 receptions for 1,480 yards and 19 touchdowns. And scouts are saying that he can't get away from people. I mean, I know he's playing at Oklahoma State, but like these, I love doing this exercise because it was really fun reading stuff. And my next two are even better than Des Bryant. But like, do you remember just how much of a dog and how good Des Bryant was? Like, if you watched him play, that guy was he was massive, man. He was so good. He was a guy who every time Dallas was like, oh, they're going to pay him. It's like, dude, please, New England, go get Tom Brady, Des Bryant, and we might win 2 Super Bowls in 1 year. I mean, that's how good this guy was at one point, you know? But that's all I have on Des. I don't know if you want to add on or go to your next one.
No, I think that's a great one. I mean, I 100% agree. I'm going to go on to my next one because this one was a little bit older, so it was difficult to find his draft profile back in the day. But I think it's a really good one. Zach Thomas.
Oh my God, yeah. He's in the Hall of Fame now, right? Finally.
Yeah, last year I believe it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God.
And it's the same thing that I said for Drew Brees. I mean, he was undersized, 5'11", 228 pounds. They didn't think he could see over the defensive lineman. He wouldn't be able to process all this stuff. And then it was, oh, well, Miami drafted him because the special teams. He's going to be a special teamer. That's all he's going to be good for. And then look what he ended up doing. I mean, I loved watching him, Jason. I'm a Patriots fan.
Yeah.
But if you respect the game and love the game,
Sure.
watching him and Jason Teal, I hated them because they used to give problems, and especially in Miami. But you got to give Zach Thomas credit.
Oh, Zach Thomas was fantastic to watch. And, this guy didn't make my list, but like that was like Teddy Bruschi too. Bruschi was too small to play middle linebacker. Like too small is not, it's who you like Allen Iverson. I know it's crossing sports, but like Allen Iverson was a dog. He was so, I almost swore he was so good.
It was so fun.
He was so fun. He was so good. Like Zach Thomas was so fun to watch. And like you said, if you respect the game, it's just talent that you're watching out there on the field. I hated the Dolphins, but those guys like Jason Taylor was so good too. But that's a great one. My number 4. My last two, I'll say, are my favorite underrated ones I did. My 4th one is Davante Adams. And Davante Adams he was in 2014. He's round 2, pick 53. In his final year at Fresno State, he caught 131 balls, 1,719 yards, and 24 touchdowns. And NFL scouts dubbed him a poor man's Michael Crabtree. And they said his production was inflated from the scheme and that he lacked functional playing strength. He caught 131 balls for 1,700 yards. And they called him a poor man's Michael Crabtree. I know he's at Fresno State, but it doesn't matter. Like he's still playing college football and putting up outrageous numbers. And 52 teams passed on that. Like, it just blows my mind that you see him come into the league and he's fantastic. Like, how you're an NFL scout. How do you miss that?
We see it all the time. And you and I
so
going
crazy.
over, I mean, I'm searching for these underrated, overrated. I mean, there were many that I saw, and I picked my favorite ones that I remember specifically.
Yeah.
The scouting reports and stuff like that. And those are the ones that I went with. But it's embarrassing. I don't know how some of these people keep their jobs in situations like this.
It is because I just like look at, and I know like when they look at it, they're like, oh, he put up those numbers. I'm sure the thought process in the draft room is like, he put up good numbers, but it was Fresno State, because I myself am guilty of that. It's like, not that he's great, but Bailey Zappi, he's like, oh, he broke all kinds of records at Western Kentucky. I'm like, yeah, Western Kentucky. Like he's 5'11", and he's not going to do anything in the league. And he's by no means is he bad, because he's closer to Tom Brady than I am to Bailey Zappi. But it's like, there's some guys where the bias comes in with a wide receiver, a guy who catches 131 balls. You're telling me defenses in Fresno State's division aren't keying in on Davante Adams and double teaming him, and he's still catching 131 balls? coincidentally from Derek Carr. But I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know how you miss on a receiver who catches 131 balls. That's all I'm trying to say.
I get it. I 100% agree.
All right, who do you got at
Um,
number five?
it's MJD, Maurice
Oh
Jones-Drew.
yeah, man, he was great in Jacksonville. You are a Jags fan, huh?
Apparently, I am. I'm huge. I should really
Is
start
David
thinking about
Garrett on
this.
your list too? Um,
I thought about it. No, I'm just joking. No. So yeah, MJD second round, 60th pick. Scouting reports on him were again size
yeah,
5'8". One scout said he's 5'8", but he looks smaller. That his size is a problem for durability in college, which is going to continue in the NFL, and that he's going to be a third down back, and that's all he can be, or a special teamer. And I
yeah.
mean, the guy comes in, he's got two seasons where touched the ball, he had 300 carries. Another season where it was 299. The guy had 8,100 yards rushing for his career, 68 touchdowns. Could catch out of the backfield. Another one, another fun guy to watch, and his size made it that much better to watch him too, because you knew
Yeah.
this guy's shorter than everybody on the field, and he's got hot. I mean, the kid was just he went.
He was a little wrecking ball, man. He was always on the field, and he was real frustrating for defenses to try to tackle because there is something to be said for a guy who's shorter when you're a defender, if especially, the big meat up front, the offensive line and defensive line are fighting for position, and you're a linebacker trying to see a guy who's 5'9", you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
with his speed, and I don't think he had the greatest foot speed, but I think he was quick
no,
and he would blow through a line, and before you know it, he's gone. So yeah, I mean, that's a really great one. And it's great too, because it's like, oh, he's too small. Oh, he was really, well, he did pretty well for himself in the NFL. So
exactly. And if you look at him, I mean, his legs were bigger than his torso. The guy, I mean,
yeah,
he was strong as anything too. He was a little wrecking ball, like you said. It was perfect
yeah,
use.
yeah. All right. Well, my number five, I saved Justin Jefferson for last. Anyone who has watched the NFL the past few seasons, he's a monster. He was a monster at LSU. He caught 111 receptions, 1,500 yards, 18 touchdowns. And then he ends up going 22nd overall in the 2020 draft behind Jalen Rieger, Henry Ruggs, and Jerry Jeudy. Uh, Scouts believe that he was too complacent. These are their words, not mine. He's too complacent to beat coverages with his athletic ability, and he was unable to separate from tight man coverage. And he's limited one-on-one to win a 50-50 ball. And his separation talent, they said, was average. And I think Kirk Cousins begs to differ on that one. I don't know. Do you remember this season when they were playing the Bills, the Vikings, and the final drive, they're trying to tie the game, and he throws it to Jefferson in like triple coverage, but it's zone. So there's like five guys around him, and he just makes the catch. But he can't win one-on-one 50-50 balls. 5-on-1 is easier. Um, like how do you
No,
like LSU is a big school. He's playing with Jamar Chase, and he's got 111 receptions, and they still think like he can't separate. Like, are you out of your mind?
I swear they just flip a coin. Heads he's good, tails he's bad, and then we'll write it up however we have to write it up. And they just flip a coin on some of these guys. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
but like Jalen Rieger went the spot before him. Like, what did they see in Jalen Rieger? Now, I didn't do a deep dive into Jalen Rieger's stats, but like, I'm really kind of curious now that I'm talking about it. Like, what did Jalen Rieger do in college that was like that's far more impressive than Justin Jefferson at LSU?
I don't know, but I mean, I mean, luckily he's a Patriot now, so we get to enjoy
Yeah,
his skills. But
perfect. Good, good,
yeah, I
good.
don't
Yeah.
know.
All right. Well, that does it for us for our 5 and 5 for the underrated. Let us know what you think about it. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, everything. We'll talk about that at the end too, but make sure you comment on those. We'll jump right into the overrated, because they are just as fun. And I'll start us off now. I'll go back to back here. Number one for me was Jadeveon Clowney. I really firmly believe that Clowney was built on one hit in the 2014 NFL draft. He's round one, pick one. Um, he's had a serviceable career. He's still in the league. But that whole career is built on that one hit in the backfield against Michigan, of course. He was a very inconsistent player in college. On draft day, I was watching the draft because that's what I was doing when I was doing all this research. Like, let's go back to the draft, see what they say. Mike Mayock on draft day when Clowney was picked says when Clowney woke up this morning, he was the most talented defensive lineman on the planet, and he compared him to Willie McGinnis. Now, never mind the fact that he was drafted by the Texans, who had JJ Watt at the time. And this guy saying Clowney is the most talented defensive lineman on the planet. It's outrageous how they come up with this stuff for a guy who was completely inconsistent at South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm confused. I would never say somebody's the greatest defensive lineman on the planet and then compare him to Willie McGinnis either.
Yeah. Well, listen.
That okay.
Well, that's Mike Mayock for you. That's probably why he got fired everywhere he's been so far, including I think Las Vegas recently. So, who do you got for? Or you could talk about it, or you can go to your number one.
No, I mean, not to agree with everything, but I agree. I mean, that hit on the back in Michigan was I still YouTube that once in a while. It was that nasty. But I do believe, I mean, yeah, absolutely. But his stock rose to unbelievable heights for that after that one hit, and it to me at that time did not make sense at all.
No,
but I mean, I don't work in the league, so I guess that doesn't matter.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. So for my first one, I'd love it, but if anybody's watching, anyway, my first one is Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, it's an easy one. It's for the basic reasons. I mean, scouts had him. Size is perfect, muscular, can make any throw, can this, that, and the other thing. And believe me, he had a couple decent seasons in Chicago. And Chicago is a difficult destination for a quarterback. We're talking about the only franchise who's never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards. As old as that franchise is. But once you throw in what he's done since then, he's kind of, Pittsburgh backup, all this other stuff. That's what he is. He's a backup.
Yeah.
And you throw in the fact that Patrick Mahomes went 8 picks later and Deshaun Watson went 10 picks later.
Yeah.
That's what does it all for me.
So I'm going to agree with you because I also had Drake May. I mean, sorry, I mean Mitchell Trubisky as well.
Freudian slip.
That was my fault. I also had him 2017 round 1, pick 2. The Bears traded up one spot. They traded 3 to 2. They also gave up their 3rd and 4th rounders and a 2018 3rd rounder. So all for a guy who he started one season in college at UNC. He went 8-5 as a starter at UNC. His losses were to Georgia, Virginia Tech, Duke, NC State, and Stanford. 6 of his 8 wins came against these powerhouses: Illinois, James Madison, Pitt, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and the Citadel. He was 10th in passing yards. Sorry. He was tied for 16th in passing touchdowns and 11th in passing efficiency. And he was compared to Matt Stafford on draft day. So I also had him. So we could actually go right to you for another one because you took him right out of my mouth.
I apologize.
No big deal.
I'll go Trent Richardson.
Okay, yeah, it's
going at number 3. I mean,
awful.
Yes.
Sorry, I was gonna say he's the reason like no running backs went in the first round, like the next 2 or 3 drafts, I think too.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think another running back had any kind of hype until Leonard Fournette probably after that. Give or take.
Was Fournette before Ezekiel Elliott?
It was so close. I'd have to.
I know because I actually wrote about this at one point, and when Richardson went, it was like 2 or 3 drafts went by where no one touched a running back till the 2nd round because of him. Like that's how bad he was in Cleveland.
Yeah, he was horrific. I mean, what did he play? I think he played 15 games his first season. His second season in Cleveland, he played 2 and then got traded to Indy immediately.
Yeah.
He played in Indy the next season. He played another 15 games, and then he was out of the league. That was it for him. And that was 2016, I believe it was, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
but I mean, if you remember in college, I mean, he was a stud. He was nasty.
Yeah.
Yep. He was. I mean, the comparisons for him were Adrian Peterson. That was basically the only comparison anybody would give him. Size, height, strength, everything was Adrian Peterson. And then we
Yeah.
saw it once he got to the league. It didn't pan out that way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he is the reason why like running backs. I'm actually confident because the way running backs are right now, a lot of people look at running backs like you don't need to draft one. You can get anyone off the shelf and run him into the ground, and then we'll pick the next guy. Like Trent Richardson, I think is directly responsible for that because that was the time. Like Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, certain guys will still go high. Saquon Barkley, um, but guys kind of look at like your college stats. You're a running back. It's like, okay, well, we're not gonna take you because we could take a guy in the third round, and if we can open holes. I mean, just this was our overrated about um, Emmett Smith, right? If you're on the right system,
Yep.
if you're at Denver, Lindis Gary, these guys are running for 1,000 yards anyway. So we'll do it with anyone as long as we have the right blockers in place. So completely agree with
Yep.
that one. So it's because I did Mitch Trubisky. I also I'm going to power through one really quickly because and if you're watching this, you know Trey Lance. Everyone knows the Trey Lance draft. He goes 3 overall. San Francisco trades a boatload of picks. They're first that year, they're first and third the next year, and then they're first in 2023. They did it to a guy who, since 2016, played in about 20 competitive games, and he's drafted in 2021. That's high school and college. This was draft diversion 101. His stock went through the roof. They compared him to Steve McNair on draft day. There was just so much hype about him. He missed, obviously, he didn't play the COVID year. He opted out that year. So I think he started 8 games in high school and 13 games in college, and it was at North Dakota. So you didn't really know much about this guy. 2016 to 2020, he played 20 competitive games about. So there was so much. That was the epitome of the story you wrote, Draft Diversion 101.
Yeah. No, that is a good one. And it was mind blowing. And it's funny because last year I kind of got the same feeling when Anthony Richardson was kind of jumping up the
Yeah.
draft board. I got the same kind of feeling. I think Anthony Richardson is going to be a better player than Trey Lance. But no, I agree with that one 100% as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that one's an easy one to fly right through because at this point, everybody knows the Trey Lance draft. So, all right, Steve, who do you got for number 3? I can't hear you.
Sounded funny.
Sorry, it cut out for a second there. Start again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So for my third, I'm going to go with Justin Gilbert, the corner. He was picked number 8 by Cleveland.
Okay. Good one.
Yeah, just another one that was everything around him was always going to be a great corner. He's got the size. He's 6'2", this guy. And he just, it didn't pan out for him. I mean, Cleveland doesn't pan out for a lot of people at that, in that
No,
era.
God, no.
But 3 seasons, but the write-up on him was exactly, he's strong enough, he's fast enough. He's going to be able to take on the biggest corners in the league day one. He's going to be a starter taking on the big guys. And 3 seasons later, he was out of the league. Just couldn't do it. And it was just, you kind of feel bad for some of these kids when they go through that.
Yeah.
And he's just one of those.
Yeah, I mean, not his fault that they wrote him up and wrote him this great write-up that pushed him up in the top 10 in the draft, but a guy who couldn't hang in the league, he couldn't cover. So I mean, really good pick right there. So number 4 for me is Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez in the 2009 NFL draft. He's round 1, pick 5. The Jets traded up to 17th overall. They traded 17, their second round, and 3 players. The only player of note was Abram Elam, he was a safety. He was there in Cleveland for 2 or 3 more seasons. And they did that to move up to 5th. And on draft day, Steve Young was quoted as saying, "When you think of Mark Sanchez, you think of Drew Brees," which is wild because in his final year of college, he was 15th in completion percentage, 20th in passing yards, and he was 9th in passing touchdowns, 6th in passing efficiency. And just, I mean, we know he won some games for New York. We played him, but he also had his more memorable moments is the butt fumble, I would think, is what people are going to remember him for. So just an outrageous jump up in the draft for an average quarterback.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I mean, he is we as Patriots fans, I mean, he and Rex Ryan, they were fairly successful. They had a couple runs
Yeah.
here and there, but
Really good
he wasn't.
defenses.
Yeah, 100%. He was good enough to not make too many mistakes at times,
Yes,
but absolutely I mean, he way overdrive, way over.
definitely. All right. Who do you got at number four?
Robert Gallery,
Oh man, that's a blast from the past,
just
huh?
yep. And he was picked number two, and he's a Hall of Fame. A comparisons Mel Kiper the night of the draft. This is Jonathan Ogden. That's who I think of when I
Yeah,
see this guy. He's gonna step right in, potential Hall of Famer down the road. Fans are gonna love him. This guy is just blue collar, drives the same car he's driven since he was 16. Not gonna get rid of it after he's drafted, and if he makes money. Like he was that guy, and he played 8 seasons in the NFL, and he was, I mean, fairly regular, 16 games, 14 games, whatever. But considering the
yeah,
hype and the specials that SportsCenter did on him and all this other stuff,
yeah.
just to be who he was, just no.
I I can't fault Kuiper too much because I too would draft players based on the junky cars they drive. So, I mean,
Naturally.
how do you not draft Gallery? That's a really good one. My number five I saved for last, and I want anyone who's watching this. I picked four quarterbacks for a reason. I had to pick Jadeveon Clowney, but this is why we talk about don't just take the quarterback. Blaine Gabbert. Blaine Gabbert had so much hype coming into the draft. And I want to point out before I talk about everything, his junior year, which is the year before he goes into the draft, he was a monster. 3,100 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. He wasn't top 20 in yards or touchdowns. He ranked 11th in passing completions and passing attempts. And that was the only place in college football where he even ranked in the top 20. He goes round one, pick 10. Jaguars trade their first and second round pick to move up to 10. NFL.com graded him an 84 and his prospect score was a 7.5. They labeled him a perennial all pro. They said he had prototype size and speed. He makes good pre-snap reads, quick release, and extends plays with his legs. Just absolutely out. His college numbers alone are enough to say I could take this guy in the third.
Yep. Yep. For some reason, I always thought of Blaine Gabbert, Blake Bortles, Christian Hackenberg, like
Jake
guys like that
Locker.
always. Yes, like those are the guys that I think of in that little crew. And Blake Bortles did a little bit more than everybody else that we just named,
Yeah.
but 100%.
All right. Who's your
Yep,
number
I
five?
agree. It's a quarterback. You'll be proud, and
I
it's
like
one
that.
that I think all Boston fans will be okay with. It's Eli Manning.
I will say, man, people who from New York are not gonna love us, huh?
No, probably not. But it's not even. I mean, he won two Super Bowls. He won them against us. We're gonna not like him because of that. But to go a little bit further than that, it was the hype. It was the guy. When we talk about generational talent, people talked about John Elway. They knew him coming in. They talk about Peyton Manning,
Yeah.
Eli's brother. Like he was a difference maker. People would tank for that.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck, people tanked for him. Like those are generational talents.
Yes.
Eli wasn't that. And when he gets drafted number one and refuses to play for San Diego, and Archie is a big part of that, dad's going to come in and save.
Yeah.
He wasn't good enough for that attention. He wasn't good enough to have that power. If it wasn't for his father, he'd be playing for the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah.
But because he had the dad and the brother, that's why he could do it. But like I said, in my opinion, he wasn't good enough to have the attention, the hype, or that kind of treatment in the league to pick and choose where he was going to play. But he had got to have it anyway. That's why.
Yeah, no, and I remember as well. I don't know which talking head said it, but somebody said, "Oh, he's better than Peyton." Like when he was coming out of Ole Miss,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
he'll be a better pro than Peyton, and that to me was like, if he is better than Peyton, the league's got to look out. Which obviously he wasn't better than Peyton, so and that's how his career shaped up. So, that's all I got for my five. You have your five. Always, like I said, comment on all these. We want to hear from you, the fans, what you think of our list, and let us know your own list too. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. You got anything more to say on that, or you want to jump right into the Bruins?
No, I was just gonna say, just remember that these are the ones that we chose. And we're not saying that they're the most overrated and most underrated.
Yes.
They were just sort of fun ones that we chose to work with, do the research on, and come to you guys with.
Absolutely. And it's one of my favorite things to do because I love going back and looking at old drafts. I love looking at old players and stats and watching film. So I know you love doing it. I love doing it. I want to jump into the Bruins now because the Bruins are playing again tonight. They lead Toronto 1-0. I want to start with the bad of the first playoff game. And it was one thing, and it's been the same thing I've been worried about with the Bruins, the shot differential. I hate the fact that they're getting outshot every single night. It feels like they were outshot 36-24. They still win 5-1. They were watching the game. They were better than Toronto all night, but at some point that your goalie's going to break down when he sees that many shots. And that worries me. And it's about the only thing that worries me. So, I know it was rocking your world all over the place there because I could see that happening. What do you think about it? Do you have any thoughts on the shot differential? I mean, when it comes to them just being completely outshot, I want to know your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's definitely a cause for concern.
Yeah,
Um,
I just
I
I
hope.
don't. Sorry, I was gonna
Go
say
ahead.
like I don't not like the Bruins goalies because they have two of the top 10 goalies in the league. And we already know Jim Montgomery. Like, I don't know what they're going to do tonight. I'm hoping Swayman, he was so good. He stopped 36 or 37. Like, he was so good. This is what we talk about when you say a hot goalie. And it's like, but at some point, right? If you're only shooting 24 times and the other team's shooting 37 times, like that's a cause for concern for me.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And it should. I mean, it should be that you're talking about. I mean, Gretzky famously said you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, I mean, naturally, you should be able to score more if you shoot more. Now, if you have a guy standing on his head like 2011 Tim Thomas, then
Yeah.
yeah, but what are the chances of one of these guys breaking off a run like that? Or
I
both
to
of them for that matter, if you're going to platoon, like, you know what I mean?
And I firmly believe it's like Swayman's your future anyway. So I want them to do with that with Swayman. That's really kind of all I have for the bad because watching this game, and I wrote it last night in my blog. It's like I don't want to go too far. This isn't my overreaction take. It could have been, but it's like I don't want to go over. But it's like watching that game restored my faith in them a little because they limped into the playoffs. They lost 3 of the last 4 against Washington and Ottawa. It looked like they almost didn't want to be there. Like they were just like, we're in the playoffs. Who cares? But then I watched this game and it's like, they're definitely the more poised team on the ice. I mean, as long as Max Domi is on the ice, man, I would keep needling under his skin. Every time he's on the ice, it feels like he's slashing Marchand. They can only call it so many times, but they're going to keep calling it. So just whatever they're doing with him, just keep getting under his skin. I mean, when you talk about zero discipline, it's the playoffs, Domi. What are you doing right now? Like before the pucks dropped, he's hacking at Marchand. I was like, is this guy like? They don't drop the gloves like they do in the regular season. The fighting's kind of going kind of away too. The league's looking at CTE and that stuff, but I'm just watching him take these like he's chopping wood. I'm like, is this guy out of his mind or what?
I think to that point, I honestly think Toronto feels that they don't have a chance. So
Wait,
I think they're trying to play tough guy Bruins hockey, which is it's amazing to me because the offensive firepower that they have is scary. So the
yeah.
fact that they would do that, but it's almost like they tried to play Bruins like old Bruins hockey to try to like do something, and it's not going to work. In my opinion, you're taking yourself out of your own game. Play the way that got you there.
Without a doubt, they were second in the league in goals for per game. Nylander, Marner, and Matthews all were north of 80 points. They score at an impressive rate. They have to beat you on the offensive end. Ilya Samsonov is terrible. I don't watch a lot of Maple Leaf hockey because I'm from Boston. I see them when they play them, but I'm not watching Toronto games. So statistically, I knew Samsonov his goaltender stats rank everywhere from like 38th to 45th. So I knew he wasn't good. But then I watched him in this game and I was like, oh, he's bad. Like I before the series started, I said, oh, this one could go 7. I wouldn't be shocked if they get swept. That's how bad Samsonov is. Like, and if he's your number one, good luck. Because they're not winning this series. I don't like if they win the series, I'll come back on here and say I'm wrong. After watching game 1, like I predicted 7 games, so I'll stick with it. And my picks were always going to be the Bruins to win at home, Toronto to win, at home. And then game 7 in Boston, they win. I don't know that it even comes to that. That's how bad he was. On top of that, I loved Pat Maroon. I mean, I don't
know.
even like, I don't know how to say it with a straight face because when they acquired him, I was like, oh, great, they got Pat Maroon. I wanted so many different guys. I wrote about it. Dude, he was a force, man. I'm watching that game like I'm watching 90s hockey. He's putting guys over the boards into the bench. I mean, I think he had an assist on the first goal. It's like, man, this guy he's as advertised. There's a reason he's been to a bunch of Stanley Cups, right?
Yep, Big Rig is back, and that's one of the biggest things. I mean, he's rested. I mean, he's fresh going into the playoffs, and he's physical, and they needed that. They absolutely needed that.
Yeah.
And he was very fun to watch, and he's gonna continue to be fun, I believe. I think having him on the ice, it kind of opens things up, and I mean, it makes Toronto think. And going back to the concern of them limping into the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something and see how you feel about this.
Yeah.
I don't know if they limped into the playoffs. I think there's a chance, I'm not saying definite, that they wanted to avoid Tampa because they know 4-0 against Toronto in the regular season. They knew how it all lined up. I don't know if it was a limp or it was a strategic move.
So I heard that narrative and I see what you're saying because why would you want to play Tampa when you could play Toronto? When you look at the teams, I had wrote I don't want to see Tampa in the first round. Like I thought they would lose to Tampa in the first round. When I heard that narrative, I'm like, no, this is professional. Like this is professional sports. They can't predict every other outcome. But then when you watch the Washington and Ottawa games, it's like they were so bad and so outshot. But then it did if you watch those games, Jim Montgomery's going nuts on the bench. So nobody told him. And Swayman was playing out of his head when they lose 2-0. So no, he didn't get the memo either. You know what I mean? So, and then they came out in the Ottawa game and they outshot Ottawa in the third. So I don't think they did. But I won't rule it out because I didn't want to see Tampa, but I mean, I'm not a competitor. I can't even ice skate. So, I mean, I don't think they did, but I would be shocked if they did because like I said, I don't watch a lot of Toronto hockey. I know they can score. They cannot defend. Their defensive pairings were bad. They looked so undisciplined. The amount of penalties they took. I think the Bruins got 5 power plays. They scored on 2 of them. I'll tell you one thing I loved about the power play. I noticed that you had texted me and talked about Shattenkirk.
Yeah.
Shattenkirk bringing the puck up, I thought was like fantastic with Zacha and Pasternak trailing. And I don't even think they scored when those guys were on the ice. But I thought Shattenkirk looked like a vet, you know what I mean? Like he's settling the puck down so there's a couple power plays I'm watching. I'm like, they're getting it into the zone. Immediately Toronto clears. And I'm like, come on, we're wasting so much time. It was like, as soon as Shattenkirk touched the puck and carried it up the ice and the dump in, it seems like that's when they started getting shots on net. And I was like, wow, this is I thought it was really good game planning by Jim Montgomery.
Yep. I agree 100%. That's why I text you 100. Yeah, absolutely.
And is Jake DeBrusk, David Krejci? Can he turn it on in the playoffs? Because he looked, I mean, this is what you were waiting for this guy to tap into something, right? All season?
Yeah, 100%. And I think he could. I mean, it's early, obviously. We're going to see what happens tonight. But yeah, he has the ability to do so.
Yes.
We just here and there haven't been able to see it. And then obviously off the ice complaining and not wanting to be around. Yeah. But I mean, when his head's in the game and he's physically there, 100% he could be that guy. And I'm surprised we didn't mention that earlier.
Yeah. I mean, that's who he has to be. Like if you're going far, we've talked about, Pasternak and Marchand, but you need DeBrusque, you need Coyle, Zaka, you need some of these like McAvoy, him. Like you're gonna need some of these other guys to step up. Like Pat Maroon is, I mean, we'll see how the rest of the series and playoffs play out, but I'm real impressed with Pat Maroon. I'm glad to see him. Big shout out Johnny Beecher too, for his first career playoff goal. That was like perfect way to start the game. I'm watching. I'm like, my wife's falling asleep on the couch, and I'm like, going wild, for this, like, trying not to wake her up. But
Yep.
I mean, it was a great team win, and for as nervous as I was, this kind of put me at ease because I don't think Toronto can hang with them on the ice. What do you think, going forward? Do you feel a little more confident in this?
I do. I don't, as long as the goalie situation doesn't get messed up. If for me, it's always going to be based on Swayman and Olmark. It's
Yeah.
always going to be that. As long as that's clean, Jim Montgomery actually runs that the right way. I don't think it goes 7, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah. As long as the goalie situation is clean, I think they're good and earlier than we expected.
Without a doubt, I couldn't agree more with you. And I thought originally I did think it was going to go 7, and now I'm watching it. I'm like, there's no way it goes 7. So I'm really excited for tonight. I think they're definitely going to get another win on home ice. Like, I don't think Toronto's stealing one in Boston. No way, no how. And let's just move on to another team who I think should get swept. Let's talk Boston Celtics playoffs, because they should, I mean, to go on to your first initial overreaction, there's no way. I predicted this as well, and I said that it was going to go 5 games. The Heat are bad without Jimmy Butler. That's a bad roster. Like, the Celtics should sweep the Heat. I don't know how you feel about that.
They should, but I'm such a pessimist.
I know you are.
So with that being said, I think Miami at least takes 1. I think Spoelstra, he's a better coach than Joe Mazzulla. If you're a Boston fan and you're upset with me for saying that, then I apologize. But Eric Spoelstra is a better coach than Joe Mazzulla, like way better.
Which is funny because when he had the big 3, I was like, Spoelstra, how easy is it to coach with those guys? And then he sticks around for years and they're always good. So I do think Spoelstra I think he's a fantastic NBA coach.
I think he's a great coach.
Yeah.
And I think he can steal a game. You're going to have a game where Tyler Hero looks better. There's going to be a game where Highsmith does more. And he's the one that I watch to see if he's going to be able to add anything while Butler's out.
Yeah.
And Bam can win a game as well. I mean, Bam Adebayo he's a stud. He's an absolute stud. So I think they at least steal 1, 5, maybe 6. And I think that's where it'll be.
If they win a game, it's in Miami. Which is what I kind of, when Jimmy Butler was going to be out, and even if he comes back, he's not 100%. He's not, you know what I mean? It means he's just trying to will through for the team. And I do want to say, like, I'm disappointed that he's not playing, because Jimmy Butler is one of my favorite players to watch. I love his game. And I never want to see a player get hurt. It's just it's not good for the game anyway. Like, I want to see my team beat the most competitive Miami team, because Tyler Hero going 4 for 13 tells me he is probably not a superstar. He needs to be a number 2. You know what I mean? He's not going to be the same without Jimmy Butler. Bam is great. I thought Kristaps Porzingis looked really good down low. Like, I don't think he got bullied. Like, I kind of thought he might. And again, when I say I wanted to see Jimmy Butler out this, how did you feel about Caleb Martin's hard foul on Tatum?
I'm having a really difficult time because I'm watching the video. I've watched it multiple times. I'm trying to decide. I'm trying to take everything in. I tried to watch a couple different angles because I don't want to just immediately, it was dirty, without seeing it. When you watch the video and you slow it down, you can see Drew Holiday has hands on him, on Caleb Martin, and he pushes him a little bit. But I don't think it was enough of a push to force the foul that had happened.
Okay.
It concerns me that Spoelstra called a timeout right before that. The game was over. I I mean, the game was
Yeah.
in the books at that point, in my opinion. He calls a timeout, and shortly after that timeout, I think Brian Scalabrine talked about this, how it's super sketchy. The timeout was called, and all of a sudden, this is the play that happens after the timeout when the game was already out of reach.
Yeah.
There's a million ways to look at it. You know, you shouldn't have had Tatum on the floor in the first place, blah, 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 whatever. But I'm going to tell you one thing. What I liked about that situation is the way Tatum got up and just walked away
Okay.
and said, "Nope, let's go." He looked motivated. He looked like I'm not getting into this. This isn't what it's going to go. We're just going to beat you guys. He kind of had a look on his face, and it gave a little nod, like, okay, like he understood where we were.
Yeah.
Do I think it was dirty? Yeah, I kind of do. I mean, it was absolutely unnecessary. A hip check. It was dirty, in my opinion.
I think this is my take on it, and it's a strong take. There was a phantom push. He wasn't pushed. Everything you said is correct. I loved it. I love that Caleb Martin did it. I love that the Heat and the Celtics hate each other. It reminded me of NBA, like 90s NBA basketball. I loved it. They don't like each other. I don't want them to like each other. I love that Tatum popped back up. I like that Jaylen Brown stepped in. I loved everything about it. I love that a technical was not called. Fine them if you want to, because it was a dirty play. It was 100% dirty, but Tatum didn't get hurt. If Tatum falls on his neck right there and he's out for the series, then I think Caleb Martin should be out for the series. Like that's how I'm almost eye for an eye type of guy. If something's that flagrant and dirty and it meant to happen and you get a guy hurt because of it, then you're gone too. But I loved it. I thought it was just, they were frustrated. They're getting their heads kicked in and they hate Boston. And we hate Miami. We're going back and forth with Heat fans because this is a rivalry at this point. The last few years, these are the two best teams in the East, and they're always playing each other in the playoffs. And now Miami loses Jimmy Butler, who's their heart and soul. The only way that they can beat Boston is to beat them up physically and get in their head and try to make Boston play down to them in a dirty game. I thought it was a genius play by Miami. Dirty as it may be, I did not want the technical foul. I love that Tatum bounced back up, and I love hard basketball like that. I think there needs more of it. If that's LeBron James, I mean, he might get carried off in a stretcher. The whole team wants to fight. I think Caleb Martin would have got thrown out. I love how this happened, and because I don't think Tatum should have been even on the floor at that point. I thought Mazzulla was really trying to push him to get a triple-double. But again, that kind of talks to his competitive nature as well. I don't think he wanted to come out.
No, Tatum is definitely not a guy who skips, and I don't know if he got that from his connection with Kobe. He's not a guy they've talked about it coming to the end of the season. Jaylen Brown would have a game off. Porzingis would have the hamstring issue. He'd be out for the game. And Mazzulla would go to Tatum and say, all right, tonight's your night off. And Tatum you see reports of this. Tatum's like, nah, I actually kind of want to play tonight. And he'd go out there and play 34 minutes.
Yeah.
I think he likes being out there. He enjoys being out there. I'm going to give a little pushback. I'm not a huge fan of the play. I'm not going to say I loved it.
I did.
Because somebody could get hurt. And a trade-off of, okay, so you suspend, let's say Jason Tatum falls on his neck. And, okay, we're going to suspend Caleb Martin for the rest of the series because of an eye for an eye. That's not eye for an eye, man. Losing Caleb Martin versus Jason Tatum, that's like a hockey fight when you have somebody trying to fight Connor McDavid, who's a bum, who's a fourth liner. That's not a good trade-off. That's not it. That's so only because, if it went the other way, I'd probably be defending it because I'm a Boston fan.
Yeah.
I try to be unbiased, but we all struggle with it here and there.
Sure.
But I don't know what this opens up because the Celtics don't have. It was always Marcus Smart was the enforcer. He was the guy that was going to protect the guys. You had Grant Williams. I won't get started on that. But you don't have that guy. And I don't know if that's part of it. Hey, they're beating us. And they have nobody who's going to fight back. So we might as well go after these guys. And remember, they still have it in their head that Jaylen Brown's dirty because he hurt Duncan Robinson.
Yeah.
So that's part of it as well. I don't want to see it. I like the physical play. I like the tough play. But I don't want to see either side get hurt.
Yeah, no, I don't want to see injuries, but I do. I loved the hard nature of it. I don't think Caleb Martin's trying to hurt him. I just think he's trying to be tough because that is the only way they're beating them. They have to break them down and hope that Boston decides we're going to play like this. Because Boston's game went exactly how we thought it would. They only went 3 players deep on the bench. They're up 30 and it's Pritchard, Hauser, Horford, who all had 30 points. Like, it's exactly how we thought the game was going to go. And Miami that is a bad roster without Jimmy Butler. And the game, we've said this before, we always talk about that. Not every team can be Golden State. Are we wrong about that? Because I broke down some stats and I'm going to give them to you. You can say yes or no. It's up to you. But I'm going to give you 2015, 17, and 18. The Warriors in 2000, these are the regular season numbers. The Warriors shoot 40%, 38%, 39%, all in succession, right? That's the regular season numbers. In the postseason, they shoot 37%, 39%, 36%. The Celtics shot 38%, which falls right in the middle, and they're shooting 45% through one game. Super small sample size.
Yeah.
But to say that like not every team can be them, the 2017 Warriors shot the most 3-pointers. They went 982 for 2,562 and shot 38%. The Celtics this year shot 38%. They went 1,351 for 3,482. They shot almost 1,000 more threes than them and shot exactly the same percent. Are they the Warriors? Like, are we wrong about this?
I'll say no right now.
Well, you're wrong, but okay.
Well, I'm going to reserve the right to change my mind. No, the only reason I say that is because right now they're playing against a team that you just said has a horrible rust.
Yeah.
So for me, if they do it against a Denver, I mean, I don't even have an East team that I can say. So yeah, if they do it against let's say they get to the finals, complete hypothetical, and they do it against Denver and they continue with that, absolutely, 100%, I will agree with you or say yes. But through one game, like I want to see what happens when they're not hitting their threes. Can they adjust? Does Joe Mazzulla come in and all of a sudden they have plays set up? And my biggest thing with the Celtics sometimes, ball movement and then movement without the ball.
Yeah.
Instead of the ISO ball where it's Tatum's turn, it's Brownstone. We've talked about this too many times. I want to see movement without the ball. I mean, Peyton Pritchard seems like the only guy who knows how to move around the court when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. I want to see a little bit more. So to me, they could be. I guess they could be. I guess my answer is not no. They could be. It's just too early, obviously, in this playoff season to be speaking to it.
Yeah.
And again, what happens when the threes aren't dropping? I mean, 45% yesterday was phenomenal. I mean, they came out early, and Sam Hauser comes out, hits 3 in a row. Like, it was great.
Yeah.
What happens when they're not? And against better competition.
And I mean, I know what you're saying. I just think, I mean, for an entire season and they're shooting 38%, they have to get it done. If you don't win the title, it doesn't matter. It's like the Warriors going 73-9. You didn't win the title, so it's not the greatest season ever. It's the Patriots going 18-1. Not the greatest season ever. Sorry. You cannot be the best ever. If you did it, then you are. So the Celtics need to win the title. And as far as I'm concerned, looking at the East now, I know it's only one game and it's a huge jump, but looking at the East right now, if you're not in the NBA Finals, this is a huge failure of a season, if you ask me.
I agree 100%. I don't think it's as big of a bust as the 73-9 Warriors, like somebody tried to say on Twitter yesterday.
Definitely not.
But no, 100%. I have said it. I said it on Twitter, and I think I said it in one of my blogs, that I believe if they do not get to at least the finals, you have to seriously sit down if you're Wick Grossbeck and Brad Stevens, and you need to discuss Joe Mazzulla, and you need to discuss the connection of the two Jays. Because if they can't do it with this season, with bringing in Drew Holiday and bringing in Kristaps Porzingis, still having Derek White, Al Horford, et cetera, you have to wonder if you'll be able to do it with those two young guys. And they're still young enough, but you have to at least wonder and talk about it, in my opinion.
I completely agree with you. That's all we're going to do on the playoffs. We have a lot more playoff talk coming up in the weeks ahead. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to get to our quick questions. We put out on Twitter that we were going to answer questions on our show. So we had people ask questions and we're going to answer a couple of them now. Steve, I'm going to start with you. I'll let you start off.
Yeah, we got just a quick one from @JHauser12 on Twitter. And he asked, what should the Pats do at pick number 3? What's your opinion, Eli?
At number 3, very quickly, I'm trading back so I can get Joe Alt. If no one will trade with me, I'm taking Joe Alt anyway. I want a left tackle for the next decade. who's going to protect whoever my quarterback is, because that sets up the rest of my draft. That's my answer. Eli, geez, Stevie from @cowboy_reg. What are the Patriots' top 3 needs in the draft?
In my opinion, offensive tackle, quarterback, wide receiver.
In that
no
order?
particular order.
Oh, no,
No
particular.
particular order. No, I think, to be honest, I think it would be offensive tackle, wide receiver, quarterback if I had to do it real quickly off the top of my head. Just because I don't think this roster is set up for a quarterback to do anything right now, so I would hold
Okay.
off on the quarterback, but that's why.
All right, perfect. What's the next
Right.
one?
So this is from @Mafia Members Pod. Would you rebuild through drafts, or would you trade for younger players and do it that way instead?
I'm doing it through the draft. Thank you for the question. I'm doing it for the draft. Nobody's trading young talent. If you have young talent on your roster, unless you don't want to pay them because you're, Bill Belichick and the Patriots, basically. I'm going through the draft at this point and should be going through free agency, but they didn't. But I'm going through the draft. I might be trading back to get more picks in the next coming years. Trading for young talent means that you're giving up draft picks. And I don't think there's young players out there, like the really good young players in the league. I don't think teams are moving on from, unless they're a really bad team, which the Patriots are. And they're not that close. So I'm going to the draft right now. There was a second part of that question. It's coming at Steve right now. It is from @Mafia Members Pod. And what is the acceptable timeline for you, Steve, to compete for tops in the division?
I think 3 to 4 years is where I am. And the funny thing is, I think if you had gotten rid of Bill Belichick when you got rid of Tom Brady, that's where you'd be right now. And you might have had somebody who actually knew how to rebuild a team. But anyway, yeah, I think doing it through the draft, doing it the right way. The only trades that I would talk about in that situation for the young talent is something like if you found a way to get a T. Higgins or Brandon Ayuk or something. AJ Brown, I guess, is the newest one.
Yeah.
But outside of that, yeah, I'd say 3 to 4 years, as long as it's done the right way. And you don't bring in if you bring in a quarterback to this system, if you bring in a Drake May and you start him right now, you're going to ruin him. You're going to be drafting the quarterback again in 3 years. You're going to set that timeline back, in my opinion. So I think 3 to 4 years, if it's done correctly, I think that's when you could consider being back in it.
Okay.
All right. So Eli from Jones and for Sports, our partner here @JN4Sports on Twitter. What are your thoughts on Robert Kraft tarnishing Bill Belichick's opportunity to get a job in the NFL this season? Next season.
All right. So very simply put, I do not believe it. The reports were all pretty thin and, I didn't buy it. I think what hurts Bill the most is Bill. I think Bill wants total control, and I think any good owner shouldn't give him control because he's a very poor GM. He is a very good coach. He's a great coach, if you ask me. But I don't think Robert would purposefully do that. I think they have a good professional relationship. It fell apart somewhere, the same it did with Brady. But I think Robert wants to be liked so much in the NFL. He wants the Hall of Fame that he isn't purposefully doing anything. I think this is more about Bill and less about Kraft as to why he doesn't have a job. NFL owners are geared towards younger offensive-minded coaches. Bill Belichick wants total control. And he's a defensive guy. That's where I see it. And our last question in this segment is a DM from our buddy Luke, a good friend of the show. Steve, will the Celtics win the NBA championship?
I'm going to say yes.
All right, good. Yes. I love
Yeah.
that answer. Do you want to elaborate or just a simple yes from you?
To be honest, I think the additions that they obviously made, we've already gone over, and I think they're going to be able to put it together. I think Tatum has it in him this year to try to prove something. I think he's sick of the MVP, not even being in the conversation anymore. It's always Luka, this guy, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think he wants it, so I think he's going to try to put himself. And he said it earlier. He said that he's going to be the next face of the league, and I think without a title, you're not. So I think he knows that.
All right. And then we are going to wrap up the show with something that Steve has no idea what we're about to do. Steve, there are 8 playoff games tonight. I'm going to rattle them off. I want to know who you're picking to win. No point differential, just who's going to win. Steve, who's winning the Bruins Maple Leafs tonight?
Bruins.
Magic versus Cavs.
Cavs.
76ers Knicks.
Knicks.
Lakers Nuggets.
Nuggets.
Islanders Hurricanes.
Islanders.
Golden Knights Stars.
I'm going Golden Knights.
All right. And Kings Oilers. There's only 7 games. I apologize.
Oilers.
All right. Steve, great show again today. I had a blast with you. I want to mention, as always, we are partnered with Jones and for Sports. We make sports better. Steve, any final thoughts on the show today?
No, I'm trying to say it's always fun talking to you. And I want to thank all the guys on Twitter that sent in the questions. Continue. Everybody on here that's watching, send questions in. We can answer them. We'll give you a shout out next time.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Thank you, everyone who watches. It is a fun time. We have the playoffs. If your teams aren't fortunate enough to be in them, join the bandwagon. Go Celtics, go Bruins, go Red Sox. We are still in our chase to 90 wins. Steve, that's all I got for you today. And I can't wait to do it next time. We will have a new Boston boy joining us Thursday. We are going to do an NFL draft show, and Kiefer will be joining us. And I will unfortunately be on vacation, and Kiefer and Steve will probably join you with a podcast of their own until I'm back. But until then, everybody, enjoy the sports out there. It is such a great time to be a fan. We have baseball season, we have playoffs in the NBA and NHL and the NFL draft coming up. Thank you again for watching us. Steve, have a great day.
You too, bud.